So, I was doing some thinking about the motivation for this video, and it took me a little while to understand what exactly is driving me to do this. Because after the events that unfolded, I almost instantly felt, I want to say my piece. There's some sort of anger or frustration in me that wants to come out and be heard. And almost like fighting or going into an attack, you might say. And that's not the sort of energy that I want to be putting out in the world. It's also not what I want to be feeling, but at the same time, there's kind of this inner voice or truth that wants to be heard. So as far as I can tell now, the way I try to logically see it is that my motivation stems from trying to do right by those that I've done wrong by in the past, and of course leaning towards the people and the things that I actually care about. And so in a way, I feel like it's atonement. That's, it's easy. It would be easy for me to not do this. It's actually quite challenging to say my piece and find the words for it and to put myself out there. So that's, to just let it slide and to forget doesn't really feel like the right thing. And the topic, or I guess a certain angle or perspective to look at this content with, or that I sort of tried to put onto the whole topic, is that of doing the right thing or justice. And this is quite a difficult topic, I think, for any person to know, what is the right thing to do in any certain situation. And I suppose have always been someone who likes to talk about things and who likes to be friends with as many different people as I can, and to be able to hear different sides of a story. And it's been only in recent years or times that I've recognized, I'm a bit too soft and I need to say my piece a bit louder and put myself out there, not to necessarily cause conflict and harm, but essentially, staying true to that inner voice, even if it means sometimes you get misunderstood. And that's the only way I've found I'm able to sort of learn and to heal things. And I still have, and have had even stronger tendency in the past to not want to step on people's toes and to cause conflict or to sort of make waves. And that's led to me, I think, having a subpar experience in life, in my relationships, and in general the joy that I've experienced. And it's been a big journey to understand why it's difficult for me to protect my boundaries, and what's happened in my childhood, and or what lessons didn't I learn around topics such as anger and fear. And so these kind of all come together in this sort of story that I want to share today. I essentially don't want to go into too much detail. What I would like to do is essentially just upload these videos that show something that happened to me, what I believe was not correct. And I feel like without the context there, it doesn't really, people won't really understand what's happening, what's going on. And also because I was in Germany at the time and speaking German in the videos, I feel like giving a bit of background here is required. So I think the beginning of that, or this whole thing, is again me reaching a point of my life where I kind of had to make a decision, in my relationships. Do I keep doing what other people sort of deem to be correct? Do I go on holiday with parents-in-law, even if I don't feel like it, but just because my partner really wants me to go, even though I know if I go, I haven't yet figured out how to harmonize with them, I'm gonna have a bad time, or do I stand my ground? And so that was really the starting point of all of this. I found my whole life started to change from saying, yeah, I'm doing me now, and not, of course, yeah. Anyway, so there was there were many incidents that came up, and some of them I share in one of the videos when I'm actually in the clinic. So what happened is, through doing this, I've had a deep curiosity, and in a certain sense, I felt like I was exploring the nature or cause of maybe sin or evil, or the opposite of justice, you might say, and trying to put it together. Is it something that just naturally occurs and that's in every person? Is it just ignorance? Is it making mistakes? Is it something different? What am I even? Who am I? It was a really big exploration to this stuff, and I'm still exploring. And I think the main thing I've figured out is that, these things are so hard to talk about, and you need a certain level of time and tranquility and peace to really be able to move forward and to make progress. And it's quite easy to see maybe evil or sin or mistakes or ignorance, or however you want to look at that, or however you want to talk about that, by the opposite of that. So people that are stressed, people that also don't have that curiosity, and people that are trying to tell you how things are, when in reality we don't know how anything is, right? So I wouldn't have known how to be able to say that, but I might have had an intuition like that's what was going on. And I started to see that more and more, that people, especially when they treat me in a certain way, authority figures or people who have control over my life, or even in relationships, friendships, and lovers, all of that. If someone's trying to tell me how something is, there's something a little bit off there, and that could be. Now it comes down to another point, which is who's at fault? Well, is it their parents for raising them that way? Is it their culture? Is it them as an individual because they didn't, grow past a certain point? And it's, for me, I suppose it's not about trying to put fault to it. It's more just about how do I make the world the way that's helpful for me. And I believe putting this message out there is one step towards that. Yeah, and it's about, I think, re-engaging in dialogue and sometimes coming back into, let's say, conflict. Because another way to look at conflict is the desire or ability to play or love or to fight. They're different sides of the same coin that are all sort of necessary to function. So in the truest sense, I think ignoring is probably the worst evil there is. It's death, it's you're not even showing up to say your piece, or to there's just a dying out or fizzling out of energy. Someone's trying to send some sort of a signal, and it's not, there's no feedback, there's no, yeah. So that's sort of, yes, blame. So one large event, there's a couple of events with police, and so I'm going to try and talk about them briefly so that keeps the story straight. So one of the events that occurred was in the flat I was living in at the time, shared flat, where the police ended up getting involved. And in my opinion, I was treated in an unfair way. And I ended up saying certain words which were interpreted by the police to be directed at them as an insult, which for me it was just sort of letting off steam. Yeah, and like a lot of, I don't even remember actually saying it, and I remember being in a state of a lot of stress. So just my interpretation of that is just, I was, letting off, or it was like a release valve. I didn't have other means to remain civil. I'd been pushed so far into a corner that, I don't want to go into details of that, but I was, the police brought me to court because of this. And this happened, I believe the court case happened after being in the clinic. So in the videos that I show, I'm in the clinic, I'm being held there against my own will. And this happened in a certain way, unrelated. And after this event, I ended up being, after this event, no, I think it was before this event, yeah. So before being in the clinic, I was had the court case, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the order of events. So that was very interesting for me because, there automatically I was on a back foot, and talking with my lawyer as well, it was really sad and in a way disgusting to see how the system works. How, he was saying, he's been doing it 20 years or something like that. You're not going to get justice here. You're not going to get your piece heard or whatever. We're just going to try and minimize the damages and this and that. And tried to make it clear what it is that I wanted out of it. But, he didn't see that as being possible. And from the very moment, it's assumed that the allegations against me are correct and I'm trying to rebuttal them, which already puts weight to the fact that potentially they're correct, and there was no need for evidence that what these two people say, just because there's a witness, that it's somehow true or correct. There was no, that step had already been ticked and moved on, and it's like, hang on a second, I tried to bring that up and it was just like, these things get knocked down. We don't have time to deal with this. This is a trivial case. And, I ended up, because I was, putting my point across and showing, I don't really respect the judge or this other guy. Not sure of the name, but the defender or something like, or the person sort of attacking me or whatever it is. Just, it really felt like a kid's show in there, and that hurt their egos. And then, it was interesting to see the price, because I have to pay a fine. And I've just ignored that. I'm not giving any importance to that. So, well, at least I think I have to pay a fine. I don't actually know because, it was in German and it's not a place where you can ask questions. It's just like, this is the big boys' room and you have to, they think they're so important. It's really interesting. And they don't give you any respect at all. It's terrible. So the amount I had to pay, depending on how I was behaving, was going, up a lot. So at one point we had a break and we went outside, me and the lawyer, and then he, originally I think the talk was like, it's just going to be an apology or something. I have to apologize or something like that. It's absolutely ridiculous. But then, because of certain things I'd said, I'm just skimming over it, right? The interesting part was that he came out and was like, now there's not going to be an apology. Like they're asking for this much now, like 4,000 or something ridiculous. And then, it was just quite interesting to see like the power dynamic that was going on there. And like nothing of this was to do with, I would say, getting to the truth or fairness or like, I don't know. It's hard for me to really understand the values and what's driving this whole process. But there is a lot of incompetency. There's a lot of, this is the way that it's been done. There's a lot of like, people trying to feel important by the work that they do. And none of that has to do with the mistreatment of people. And my lawyer said, he's seen it's so common, like, he's always dealing with police in these cases, and they know how to deal with it, and they never get punished. Like, this is just the truth, right? And I was saying, I feel very fearful of seeing these people. I was attacked in my own home. I had the fear of, I thought I was going to die, like that, and not just like a rational thing. Like, I experienced that fear, and that you stop functioning when you go through something like that. It's very traumatic, and that. He sort of just blew that off, my lawyer, and was like, they're just going to be there. They're going to be tame little pets, and they were. They play the game. They suck up to the judge, but my reason for saying that is that doesn't, just because I rationally know that, doesn't mean I'm going to feel any different, behave any different, and that. So all this sort of stuff gets totally ignored in the current system, and the incompetency that is there just is rewarded by jobs, by money, by whatever it is, right? And there's so much harm being done. And after these events had started happening to me, I started talking to people, and my case is a mild case. I've heard of things much worse where I met two young girls, and one of them was telling me about her mother, how she'd seen her beaten. Anyway, I don't want to go into this because they start to sound like crazy stories, but if you listen to people and a lot of people have gone through really vulnerable things and are scared to talk about them, because where do you turn to for help? Especially, like, even for me, that time, right? You're in such a weak, low, vulnerable state that you can be taken advantage of. And it is extremely difficult to find that strength to organize yourself, to come back, and to get justice. You need that time and healing and all of that stuff to have occurred. And then at that point, I've been thinking about that for a long time. Do I move on, or do I go back into this fray? And so it's clear to me that I don't give up and I go on, because the reason why I suffered, I believe, depression was because of a lot of these injustices and truths out there, and the way that the world sort of currently is. I found that to be not to my liking, and the way that I was treated, and more importantly, the way that some of my loved ones have been treated, has really, I guess, given me a certain desire to push through and to make headway on these sort of things, even if they're very challenging and tough. So, is there anything else I want to say? Yes, so about the videos. It starts off, I'm in a clinic being held there against my own will. So what happened there, I suppose the best way to say it is I was starting to go a little bit psychotic, and I was let's say acting up I was in a park, and I wouldn't say I didn't hurt anyone or anything, but I was just kind of just acting up and out of place. And so people called the police, like, this guy here is a bit strange. And the police were like, they started accusing me of doing some things that I didn't do, which I said I hadn't been doing, but they noticed, okay, this person's a bit different. Like, let's take him we're going to take him to the mental hospital. And, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to go home or go my own way. And yeah, they weren't up for that. So yeah, it was, they also had quite a very bad vibe. Like, one of them even was threatening to beat me up. And so yeah, I didn't want to go with them. And that sort of turned into a commotion. There was a bunch of people came around, which was a good thing. I felt much more safe having them there. But then they ended up taking me to the mental hospital, and so yeah, giving me drugs and all this sort of stuff. Like, they come back to being. I remember being in the ambulance, all this sort of stuff. And I come I awaken and I'm tied down to a bed in the mental hospital and being pumped full of drugs. And now I'm like, well, now what? You know, like how do I get myself? Well, what's happening to me first of all? So this, yeah, it's interesting, the mind. So on one half, there's a part of me that's observing always what's going on and is quite interested and is like, you know, trying to learn. Okay, look what's happened here. I had an intuition that something was a bit off, and you know, like I've been acting up or going psychotic or whatever, or sort of attracting this negative energy towards me so that I can understand it and then, you know, heal it or attack it or get my revenge or whatever it is you want to. There's a part of me that's kind of like, you know, we're onto something here, and the other part that's like, fucking hell, like I'm screwed. And yeah, so I'm in the clinic being pumped full of these drugs and trying to figure out how can I get out or get what it is that I want, because I don't feel that this is the place that's going to help me. I don't know what these drugs do. I don't trust these people. I don't know anything here. And so that was, I guess, my truth, and the truth of the people around me is that, you know, this person is in a mental problem and we're going to help him, or we're helping him. And so I started to, I guess, explore where I was and talk with the nurses and so on and so forth. And it was very humiliating, the whole situation. And so I was trying to stay true to my inner voice, which was telling me, you know, I don't deserve to be here, and that's not what it was telling me. It was more like, I want to be free. I don't want to be here in this place, and I'm not going to just take it. You know, I'm not a little kid anymore, and I'm not just going to take whatever. So how do I get myself free out of this situation, and not just I don't know, be like the bitch of these people in here. So, you know, legally, like supposedly legally, like there's nothing they could do, and I have to be there. So I started exploring, and I ended up talking. I have a talk with the doctor. So I talk with her, and she reminds me of like Professor Umbridge from Harry Potter, if anyone's seen that. So kind of a scary woman. Yeah, and for many reasons. But so I have a talk with her, and it wasn't about the concerns that, well, what I expressed to her, you know, I've been brought here because of the police, and I feel that, you know, that's not fair, blah, blah, blah. We're totally dismissed. In her eyes, she's talking with a crazy person. And, oh, yeah, you know, maybe in a week or two we can, like, I don't know, because if for me to get out, it had to be a decision of the head doctor. And yeah, you know, maybe you'll come around in a week, or I don't know, whatever, like. And I'm like, a week, mate, you know, like, I don't want to be here 1 second, you know. And it was like, wow, we're busy, we have things to do. And so, you know, it's just like the freedom is like such an important part for human beings, and it's something that I'm trying to have in my life. And yeah, there's many negative consequences that came from being incarcerated, and you know, financial, but many other things as well. And so I was like, wow, you know, like this is, you know, people here, it's kind of sick, you know, the way that they treat people. And so not sick in the good way, right? Like, I think that's obvious to say, I mean in the bad way. And so there came an opportunity where I could escape. And I knew this isn't a long-term solution, but it's kind of more staying true again to that inner voice that says, like, fuck you guys. Like, you're not taking me serious here. So at the time, I'd been putting a lot of effort into my mental health. You know, I'd been making sure I'm doing sports, going out in the sun, exercising, doing a lot of things that are healthy for me. And I had, even I believe it's not even every day. It's like every couple of days we were allowed to go out for a walk. Otherwise, we're not allowed to. And there's a TV you have for entertainment. Like, I don't know. It's absolutely terrible in there what they have to offer. But so we go on this walk, and I'm planning. I'm like, all right. Like, I don't know, like I'm not allowed to leave, so probably there's like a fence or barbed wire of some kind. So, you know, I decided to leave my t-shirt and just bring a towel, my blanket from the bed. And it's like, wow, you got your blanket, you know? And I was like, oh, I'm a bit cold. So I had an excuse ready. I was able to take the blanket with me, and I was like, I'm gonna throw this blanket on the barbed wire and escape. And we're going out for this walk. And super fascinating, the dynamics of human interaction. So as far as I could see, one of the guys who was probably like, he thought he was the alpha maybe of the group, the big bad boy, you know, okay, so the guy, Pablo, the head or whatever, or had some, not the head doctor, but he had some top position there or whatever. He's the one who took us out for a walk. And I don't know, in my opinion, it kind of looked to me like, you know, he's strutting his stuff and he's like just walking us around this yard. And there was no fences or anything, you know, and kind of like feeling great about himself. You know, I have some authority over these people. They do what I say, you know. And so the tough, like all the people in the group, they were like his bitches, you know, even like this tough guy. So I started trying to like get as much distance as I could from the group without causing a scene, let's say. So just whatever, I'm looking at the flowers and shit like that. And then, so, because, you know, he was paying a tiny bit of attention, but not much attention really. He believed he didn't have to. So, you know, of course, though, he gets irritated if, like, I'm not respecting the speed of the group or whatever and all this sort of stuff. So the alpha guy behind me, he was like, he was trying to go to one-up me in a certain sense by always going more to the boundary or the edge. But after a certain point, you know, it was like I was in a certain danger zone, you might say, where it was like, yeah, you're going to cause a scene and so I tested, you know, once or twice and got him used, like, you know, teaching him essentially, the Pablo, you know, I am coming back to the group. I'm just a little bit slow or lagging or whatever. So I conditioned him to that, and then, you know, started walking. And then when I really felt like it was pretty good, I don't know, maybe it's 50 meters away, I just sprinted, you know, like just boom, I'm out of here. My heart's like boom, 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 boom. And no money, no nothing, you know. I ended up getting somehow I got a taxi, and then like, it was a bit rough, but I ended up being able to make it to my girlfriend's place. And yeah, I mean, it's like, what's going to happen now, right? Like, I knew I was fucked. Like, because I ended up calling the clinic, you know, I'm like, what's, you know, shit, you know, what do I do now, right? Like, so I ended up calling him up and like saying what happened, and the guy called on the phone, you know, and I got that on recording too, actually. I have evidence of that. So, shit. I'm not sure I have it on this phone. That's unfortunate. I ended up, maybe it's on my computer. Yeah, I have to check. Or, it might be on my girlfriend's phone, actually. So, yeah, so we ended up calling the clinic and saying like, hey, you know, I left and whatever. And it was like I put on speaker so she could hear as well. And it wasn't like, oh, you know, why did you run off? Or like, we're worried about you and so on and so forth. It was more like a threat. You know, the police are going to come and get you, you know, like you're and I said, wow, like, you know, don't you want to know like why I left or whatever? And it's like, yeah, why'd you leave? And I was like, yeah, exactly because of that attitude. Yeah, there's no care there and whatever. And like, there was no oh yeah, interesting. It was just, proof in my eyes when you see that these are dirty, that this guy at least is dirty. It shows you his attitude, right? And it's kind of sad. Like I say a lot of things and I feel like I need to justify and show them because of how little respect a lot of the things that I say have like received. And when people paint you as being crazy or psychotic and don't respect you, I guess there's no way to really communicate or change that, which is a general truth, I think. But haven't had a lot of people believe in me, I would say, for a while. So or maybe it's more like just I have a low self-esteem. So yeah, anyway, working on that, yeah. So yeah, the police, I'm eating some food, and this police bang on the door and absolutely freaked this. Like me and Patricia were both so on edge, and just like jumped, when the doorbell rang. And the two policemen that came, they were very friendly, nice, and understanding. They allowed me to pack some things away because I had nothing with me, right? So I was able to get some stuff, make my stay a bit more pleasant. And prepare for the long haul. And I knew also that, Patricia now knows where I am. Someone knows where I am. And yeah, so essentially the videos, stuff start to get out of hand inside of the clinic. So when I go back, for instance, they punish me, right? They tie me down to the bed. They take away my visiting rights because Patricia was supposed to come that day, and they didn't make any communication or anything clear like that. It's just like the visiting time came, and I go up and ask. I'm like, well, where's Patricia? Where has the visiting stuff work? And it's like, oh, you've lost your visiting rights. And then I'm like, well, why? Oh, of course I knew why. I'm smart enough to know that. Come on. And I could feel it as well. Something was up. Oh yeah, what do you think, mate? You ran the stunt you pulled yesterday and this and that. And I believe this was Pablo's decision. Well, he's the one who told me anyway. Patricia had made the effort. She'd come all the way to the hospital, and these, just I don't know, just like total disrespect from these people. To my time, but also hers. So, yeah, I don't know. This is, just, and later on I'd found out, it didn't tie me down to bed, when not necessary, just because their egos are kind of hurt. And there's legal limits as well to how long you can do it, under which conditions, which they broke as well. And they wanted to extend that. So anyway, so what happened is, essentially I keep speaking my truth in there. And in the videos when things start getting out of hand, I tell them, look, I want some private space. I'd like to have that some space, and that doesn't get respected. People keep coming into the room and just doing shit and whatever. And I didn't feel safe, and that was totally ignored. And so eventually I ended up barring the door because I wanted to have a peaceful sleep, and that wasn't possible. So I ended up barring the door, and and all of a sudden now, the doctor who was there, the Professor Umbridge or whatever, she tries to get me to let her in, and I'm having this communication saying, no, I don't feel safe, or we can talk like this. Why don't we just talk like this? And she didn't want to talk like that. She wanted to come in the room, right? And she's like, all right, well, I'm gonna, go get the big boy. And so now, when shit starts going sideways, she ends up getting the head doctor involved. But otherwise, when things were fine, no, you got to wait a week, whatever, before you can talk to him to potentially even think about getting out of here. So, he turns up in a little snappy jiffy, when there's punishment to be done or whatever. And he hasn't talked to me, hasn't seen me or anything like that. And, I don't listen to his authority either. And eventually I end up they start barging their way in, kind of thing, right? And so I let them in, and I'm sort of having this trying to have this conversation with him, and he's just saying, yeah, you're impulsive. We do need to tie you down to the bed. Like you're doing, I don't know, you're just off your mind. Like he didn't say that. And you see in the thing, I'm so frustrated, and I actually have myself under such good control that instead of, lashing out and attacking these people, that my system the whole time is saying enemy, enemy, enemy. Like they're holding you here against your will. Like this is not. I know from myself, like keeping that signal straight is the one thing that is kind of working against depression. The mix-up of saying, look, these enemies are my friend and have my best interests at heart is exactly what is going to lead me to be in a state of ill health. And so I end up, punching the wall instead of, hurting myself essentially, instead of fighting back. And they see that as, whatever, like this corroborates the story that they have, that whatever, look, I'm hurting myself and I need to be tied down. And I'm just like so fed up from the idiocracy and stupidity of these people. And so resource starved, they managed to get, I think it was around 17 people to come in to tie me to the bed, even though I went peacefully. I was just like, whatever. Like they didn't have any other option. They start touching me. I'm like, before these freaking people touch me, I'll do what they want, right? And there's a lot of other things that happen in there. I'll tell the last piece of the story I'll say is, I think they had eventually kind of decided, look, we're going to let him out tomorrow. Because I got them coming in, I got that on video. I believe this is like the only reason I got out of there. At least when I did. I don't know how else it would have went. So I got them on video doing this, which is very shameful. And they knew that. And they started to sing a different tone almost instantaneously, wanting me to get rid of it. And I'm like, no, I'm not taking down the videos. Had them on YouTube. And these things were getting more views than any of my other, like most of my other videos have like 0 views. And I think I had like 100, 200 by the time I took it down. And that was like in 1 or 2 days. Because there is interesting stuff happening in those videos. So they start this negotiation process of me trying to get rid of the videos. And eventually they're like, look, we can let you go tomorrow. We'll let you go tomorrow if you get rid of the videos. And I was like, okay. And then I was thinking about that, and then I was like, there's no reason why they couldn't let me out today like they wanted, right? It's still this power dynamic kind of thing going on of them not respecting me, putting their needs above mine. I'm like, no, like I wanted to go out today, right? And that, like, I didn't have that. I was so eager to get out that I just agreed to that. And then, they wouldn't respect mine, like, yeah, sorry, it's just a lot to talk about. I'll just just go to the relevant parts. So, when they ended up not, well, it's like I can't even remember some of the details. It feels like, yeah, I can't remember the details of what exactly happened right now, but it came to the point where I ended up threatening the head doctor, and I meant it too. Like I went into this state of, I was like, oh yeah, they had taken everything out of the room. Like, oh my gosh, like they'd taken everything out of the room. Like there's no distractions. This is like worst torture you kind of can have, right? Before that, I had even simple things, like a brush, I could brush my hair, or a skin brush for my body to kind of take some of the tension out, or like I had music, stuff like that, all of that gone, just like, and they eventually, they took away the bed, they took away everything. It was just like, like, and I was feeling so bad. Like I never felt that depressive in my life. Like it was a new sort of this really deep low of just like your dignity has been stripped, and really deep sadness, I think, had been viewed as in the way that, and been treated the way that I was being treated. And that little Tim inside, like the voice said, you feel so bad, like you feel like just ending your life right now. And that's because you're still kind of in a little bit belief that what they're saying is true, right? You're kind of not really standing up for yourself to the fullest degree that you can. And now it's kind of the choice, do you just limp out of here, you stay one more day and just like sulk out of here? Or do you stand up and say, no, I want to get out now? And I did, I got out that day, and this is very interesting, right? This is how I did it. I dust myself off, and I prepared myself like to kill. I'm like, all right, I need to protect myself. And it was like a switch went on inside, and I'm like, okay. I took my clothes off because I had not suitable clothes on for fighting. Cleared up things out of the room, right? So like, I know my space, it's all ready. And because they're outside, you can see it. They have the glass where they can watch me, and they're talking out there. And I'm like trying to rest and things like that, and they're talking and making commotion and all this and that. So I go up and I stir them up. And I'm like, because they wouldn't be quiet. They're just sitting in there. I just even told them how I was feeling and all this sort of stuff. And they're talking about whatever it is and laughing and just having a grand old time. This is our work day. So I'm like, bang, bang, bang. I'm like, oh yeah, you guys are just, I'll just start calling them out for what they're doing. Oh yeah, you guys are just such a great day, isn't it? Yeah, whatever, let's just, whatever, like look at the person, like, yeah, talking about me and this sort of thing. And so they try and ignore me after a while, right? And I keep shaming them, and eventually they can't handle anymore, so they go get the head doctor. And he couldn't, I started, just kept speaking my truth, he couldn't handle it either. And then I said, whatever, it somehow built up to the point I was threatening him. I'm like, you come in here, mate. I'm like, let's go. I'm like, and they kind of got so scared, like none of them would come in the room. But he was like, the big doctor had to like, I'm tough and all this sort of shit. Like I have to know what to do. And so they ended up getting the police involved. And essentially it's like the same story. We're going to lock you down to your bed because you whatever. But guess what? I got out that day, and of the so dangerous person that needs to be locked down, I was with the head doctor alone in my room, where he gave me, prescription and like told me to come back in a week's time, or whatever. He's going to treat me and all this sort of stuff. So none of the stuff they said lines up. It's all just to appease their own egos and stuff. And I think what I would want out of this is, it's not like I want a fake apology like what they wanted in the court system. You're forced to give an apology. Like, no, that's not what I want at all. And like, you have to repent and come to a certain point where you just give an apology and you see that's needed and it comes from the heart, right? Yeah, that would be nice. But right now, especially the way that there's a couple of people there's a lot of people, but there's a couple that really did things and treated me in a way that was quite subpar. And I don't really want anything from them. Like the police officer, for instance, that took me to court. I don't believe he's a bad guy, but I believe, the way that I was treated there, and like that I have this court fine, that's absolutely ridiculous. The head doctor as well at the clinic, and this Pablo guy, definitely, like, I don't know, like they should lose their jobs, or maybe that's even too harsh. I don't know, like they should learn how to not be assholes. Like, We don't have programs out there that teach people actually how to be empathetic and how to deal properly with mental health. Like, they think they have a degree and that qualifies them then to fuck people up. I don't get it. Same with the police. There's so much bullshit going on. And a lot of people think that they know, coming back to the start of this video, how the world is, how other people are, how their mental health is, or how to fix problems and so on. They have absolutely no idea. And that is probably the realization that most people need to realize, like, is that they have no idea about anything. And that would already be a big improvement towards people actually learning, for fuck's sake. And of course, this all starts when we're young. Most of us had absolutely shitty education systems where we were rewarded for not learning, but by saying the right thing, getting a result on a test, and not being engaged in stuff that was motivating or interesting for us at all. Yeah, that's a huge problem. Anyway, I think that's enough words from me. I'm just going to put those videos in. There's a bit of context there. I don't think it's that important what's being said. I may, I don't know, at another date, go into more detail or do editing or some shit like that. But I feel like I've said my piece now, and I want to just get those videos out there so people can kind of see them. I don't know, make it, maybe there's a commotion that's made. In a way, I would like that. Whatever that means, and for whatever purpose, I don't know. But anyway, thank you for listening. If you've listened this far, and for watching, or yeah, whatever. Have a good day, night, evening.